All right. So calling the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Board of Adjustments. If we can have a roll call, please.
Chairperson Jackie Turner,
Present.
Vice Chair George Burris,
I think you got that mixed
No,
up.
I don't think so.
It's Vice Chair.
Eisner.
Mr. Eisner.
Eisner, Vice Chair Eisner,
I am here.
George Burris,
Here.
right?
Here.
Good luck with
Borowski,
that. Still here.
Joanne Simon.
Joanne had sent a message saying she was not going to be able to attend. All right. So if we can please have the quasi-judicial announcement and swearing in of any speakers, please.
Yes, ma'am. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding where the Board of Adjustment acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At a quasi-judicial hearing, it is not the board's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the board is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. The board may only consider evidence at this hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has met the criteria established in the Code of Ordinances, then the board is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. By the same token, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the Code of Ordinances, then the board is required by law to find against the applicant. At this time, I would ask if any of the board have had any ex parte communications regarding the matters on today's agenda. Seeing
No.
none?
No?
Nope.
Okay, seeing none. Anyone that's testifying today, if they could please stand and raise their right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's proceed with the first application on the agenda, number 21-179, which is a variance to decrease the side setback and allow an increase in length for a dock located at 1460 Keystone Ridge Circle. Can we begin with the staff report, please?
Yes. Okay, Allie Keene, Senior Planner. The subject property is located off of Keystone Ridge Circle. It's outlined here on the screen in red. This property, as well as all the other properties within that same neighborhood, are located in the R70A zoning district, which is a single-family zoning district. To the north of the site is the R100 zone, which is also a single-family district, and the property is off of Lake Tarpon. The applicants are proposing to construct a new dock and boat lift on the subject property. They're here tonight requesting a variance to exceed the maximum length allowed by the ordinance, as well as to be outside the permitted location for a dock. The ordinance requires that a private dock cannot extend from the mean high water line further than half the width of the property's waterfront. This property has approximately 22 feet of water frontage. They would be allowed 11 feet for a dock length. They are proposing to have a maximum length of 55 feet. The Land Development Code also states that private docks and boat lifts shall be located within the center 1/3 of the waterfront. So they are proposing to have a 1-foot setback from the adjacent property lines, whereas they'd be required to have a 7-foot setback in order to be within the center 1/3. This section of the code also allows dock dimensional standards to be waived if the applicant is able to obtain statements of no objection that are signed by affected adjacent property owners. In this case, because the length and the width are being varied, they would need signatures from both property owners. This is a look at the survey zoomed out. As you can see, it's a unique shaped lot. It has a small strip of land that leads back to Lake Tarpon. And this is zooming into the proposed dock. The proposed dock and boat lift are shaded in blue here on the screen. The orange dashed line shows the extended property lines. As you can see, the dock is approximately 1 foot from the extended property lines. And again, it's about 55 feet in length, which would only be allowed to have 11 feet in length. You can also notice on the site plan that there is an existing dock to the south. That is the dock to the adjacent neighbor. And the proposed dock is approximately 1 foot from that existing dock. And this is your review criteria, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the staff, please?
I might as well.
Please.
Is there a current dock there now?
No, not for this property.
So there's nothing there, because I read something where there is a current dock.
On this, there's not a dock for this property. You might be referring to the dock that you see on the survey, but that is for the adjacent property.
Okay.
Yeah, I was looking at that same thing, Mr. Eisner, that I feel like there was information here in our package that referenced an existing dock already being there. But to clarify, that's for the property that's labeled Lot 9?
Correct. Yes, that dock is the property to the south's dock.
Okay. Any other questions for the staff?
I actually do, but I'm going to hold until I hear what the applicant has to say. It might be answered that way. Thank you.
All right, so if we can move on, if the applicant is present and would like to make a presentation.
Hi, good evening, Madam Chair, board members. Katie Cole, representing the applicant, 600 Cleveland Street, Suite 800, Clearwater, Florida. We also have the applicant, Mr. Steve Tomlin, and Tony Price with Price Marine Construction that will be here to testify. I know there's not a specified time limit in these hearings, but I just wanted to let you know I do have 2 witnesses to testify, so if...
And they're here and have been sworn in?
They are here and have been sworn in,
Thank
yes,
you.
ma'am. So, thank you. Well, good evening, and I know docks are everybody's favorite cases, especially when there's not neighbor support, so we appreciate the time that you're going to have to hear this application. Just going through the facts, and Ms. Keene has been wonderful over the past several months working with the applicant on this application. There is a very unique set of facts that begin with the shape of the lot and are contributed to by the fact of, both of you have pointed out, the neighbor to the south dock appears to cross the extended property lines and is the reason for contributes to the difficult situation that we have here. So I wanted to walk through some of the facts that we have here. This is the subdivision as it's located on Lake Tarpon. I've put a star where the Tomlin's home is, and I've put a square where the proposed dock is to be located. I thought this gave a good visual that you can see that the property to the south, which is Lot 9, the Hunt property, and the property to the north both have docks that are closest to the Tomlin's property lines and create a very even smaller area practically from a navigational standpoint as to where this dock could be located. I think it's important to look at the history of this subdivision. In 2010, this was unplatted and undeveloped, and the dock to the north I'll refer to as the Wolf Dock. This is Ms. Wolf's dock. She did send correspondence to you all objecting to the proposed boat lift, as she has talked to the Tomlins quite often over the past few months in this process and just expressed her disappointment with any boat traffic on Lake Tarpon, and she didn't want to see any additional boat traffic on Lake Tarpon. So unfortunately, we didn't get to the details of the dock design other than it could allow for a boat. So I know that and that's what her letter also focuses on. This is in 2016 after the site development, and you can see that one dock was installed here in the center of the subdivision. There are 6 waterfront lots in the subdivision. By 2019, 3 of the 6 waterfront lots included docks. And in 2020, 5 of the 6 waterfront homes include private docks. The only lot not having a private dock is the Tomlins, which is why we're here before you. In 2014, when the subdivision was first proposed, there were all 6 waterfront lots included docks, and you can see the very similar length and width of each dock. They each included an approximate 4 to 6 foot boardwalk terminating at Lake Tarpon, all along the same area. As you know from your code, the length is actually dictated by the lot width at water's edge and 50%. I didn't go through and measure each particular one to know, but this was permitted by the subdivider of the property, and so it's our understanding that because it was all internal to the subdivision, all the sign-offs were granted because it was one subdivider who was granting each of those sign-offs. This is a current photo of the subject area with the wolf dock on the north and the hunt dock on the south. This property appraiser's visual shows the hunt dock and how it traverses in the navigational area as shown on the same survey that you have in your parcel. And you can also see the width of the Tomlin lot as compared to the other subdivision lots, but the need for the length is the same as the other subdivided lots. As part of the criteria in your code, there's a clear physical constraint. The hunt dock, which is the southern neighbor, is located within the extended property lines. There's a very narrow, and subsequent to our application, it was determined by the surveyor that Mr. Tomlin and his wife do own Tract B, which pick up an additional minimum of 5 feet. And so the width, instead of 22 feet, is actually about 27, 28 feet based on that. It's still a variance, so it. I think this is very particular to the land. As you can see that the owner of Lot 8 also owns Lot B, which is shown here. You can see where it says 39.33. That is the property line of the water's edge in the triangular part. If there were an 11 or even 15-foot dock constructed from the water's edge, which is permitted by your code, it wouldn't even pass the edge that is shown there that is the V shape. And so there is a concern that the 55 feet from the water's edge, you can see where it's measured from that dotted line, but the 11 to 15 feet there would be constrained. There's also significant vegetation there in that area. This is a photo standing on the Tomlins property looking into Lake Tarpon, and that is the hunt dock. And this is the adjacent neighbor, the wolf dock, standing on the Tomlins property. In 2020, the neighbor to the south, the Hunts, did receive an additional dock permit to extend their permitted dock an additional 30 feet and add a boathouse. And that's shown here through the record system at the county. This was the original approved dock to the south, the hunt dock, and it showed what the proposed dock for the Tomlins was. And you can see here, this is 1,300 feet, 414 feet, square feet, and fortunately it's not in linear feet, from the water's edge, as compared to here, which is about the same length from water's edge. The current proposed dock is much shorter and falls into this area. And as you can see here, the actual constructed dock ends up turning and comes in at an angle. The wolf dock is approximately 80 to 85 feet from the water's edge as well. The shoreline is about 156 feet, and so it may or may not be within the center third. It's kind of difficult to determine, and it's maybe right at, but it's certainly on the southern side of that center third, as this can be seen here. We feel that the proposed length variance does meet the criteria in your code. It passes the edge of the property line, which is about 40 feet from the water's edge, which does not exist on other properties around this one. The existence of the property was not created by the applicant, but was a plat approved by the city and determined to be appropriate at the time. 6 docks were planned and included in that site plan in 2014 and proposed at the time of permitting, and then left to the individual owners at the time of the sale of the properties. The literal enforcement of the dock provisions would provide a dock that doesn't cross the actual land and enter navigational water, and it would never actually or reach the property in the water. And not having a landing to even allow for non-motorized vessels is inconsistent with the fact that you can see several boat houses and boat lifts that exist all along Lake Tarpon in this area. It certainly would not confer special privileges based on the use of Lake Tarpon. With respect to the side setback variance, after talking with staff and further conversations with Ms. Wolf, the applicant has proposed, and before you tonight, we have adjusted plans that we can pass out, modifying the request for the side setback variance and removing the boat lift itself. And so instead of a 1 foot on either side, it would be approximately 4 feet and approximately 6 feet. So that would be something that you all could approve and was within your purview. We spoke to the staff today and who conferred with the city attorney because it's a lesser request than was previously asked for. The Tomlins are trying to be good neighbors. They simply are looking for the same benefits that their neighbors have. They have this very awkward situation of their property line, trying to find a place to navigate with the existing dock to the south and the existing dock to the north. This, just to be clear, because I know this is a very precise board, the proposed dock is located within the center third, the platform, the walkway is, and it's the platform that is driving the variance. But the dock itself is in the center third here of the property. Again, the evidence presented with respect to the side setback, the width of the land at water's edge, it creates limited setbacks of 9 feet where you would end up without any type of platform or observation deck at the terminus of the dock. The southern dock is located on the Tomlins riparian area, which creates the need to angle the dock some to the north and locate this platform accordingly. The existence of the property was not created by the applicant, but was a plat approved by the city. And the literal enforcement of the dock provisions would provide a dock without an observation area, kayak launch, or other benefits surrounding the other property owners in the Lake Tarpon. This is a copy of the revised site plan, which shows the 4 foot and 6 foot. I don't know if you all, yes, you all have it before you. So I know it's difficult with such a long parcel to get on one piece of paper for you to see, so we tried to zoom in on that for you. With that, I'd like to ask Mr. Tomlin to come forward, or would you like Mr. Price to go first?
Do you want to, Jackie, do we want to do questions before the second
Yeah,
person?
I have a feeling we're going to have lots of
I'm sure you will.
questions here. So why don't we open things up to questions based on this presentation first, and then we'll have Mr. Tomlin.
Certainly. I think Mr. Price probably, who's the one that's been in the water working on it, may be the appropriate person to answer some of those questions, but I
Okay.
can always call him up at the time.
Certainly,
if you want to
if y'all
start
are-
asking
if
those
y'all are
questions,
comfortable with
sure.
that, you know who's the most appropriate person to address the specifics.
Sure.
Okay, so why don't we start at the end, Ms. Rich?
No, just so I was clear, the last survey that you were talking about, the boundary, is that the one that was passed out to us, the large?
Yes, ma'am.
The largest? Okay, thank you. And my second question, on your page 7 of your slides, it was, what's it? That one.
Here?
No, it's the 1456 Keystone Ridge.
It'll probably be
It's,
slide like 13, 14, because it's two slides per page.
Oh, thank you. This
Yeah.
one?
No,
One more.
no, right after that one. That one.
Okay.
I think that one, yeah. On this, it says 1456 Keystone Ridge Hunt, original permit, actual dock not constructed as such, see below. I just didn't hear you mention that, and could I just get clarification on what that was to mean?
Certainly, and please know that all of this information is based on what we pulled from the public records and then as compared to the survey. So this is what was approved in 2015 as the dock for 1456. Here. This is what was actually constructed. You can see that there's the bend, the proximity to the extended property line here.
I couldn't, from the visual, get an idea of how much larger it is, do you know?
Well, in 2020, this permit was to add 30 feet to the end of the dock from what was originally approved in 2015. 20 feet is Mr. Hunt's here. So,
Thank you.
so how much different? I think it's at a slightly different angle, first of all, and then it's currently longer today than it was permitted in 2015.
So it was still permitted, it just wasn't the original permit? I mean, the dock was permitted, it wasn't where they
Oh,
just
yes, I
bought it
wasn't
without it.
implying that it wasn't permitted. I don't think that this
Yeah.
aligns
Jackie,
with this
Yeah.
picture. And this is what's constructed.
So,
can't have him hollering
yeah,
at you.
I'm addressing it, yes. So I believe Mr. Hunt. So what we'll do is there will be a point in the evening where we can have others such as yourself come up and present. And at that time, just make sure that you have been sworn in if you haven't already. Okay, yeah, so we certainly will be addressing that at that point. So right now, we're going through the process where the applicant is making their presentation and we're asking questions. Then we'll open things up to the public, to anyone present to ask questions. And for us to engage in that back and forth questioning, we can go back to the staff and have ample opportunity for everyone to speak.
How can I get sworn in?
Before you speak, the attorney will do so. Yes, ma'am.
I'm
Continue.
answering your questions.
Yes.
That's all.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm still need some clarification because I have a letter that states there's a dock present there, and from the aerial views, it shows a dock there. So I need to clarify first, before we go any further, whether there is a dock there or not.
That's
There
the
is-
Hunt dock.
Not a dock on the Tomlins property. The dock that's on the aerial views are the two neighbors' docks.
The Hunt that I was asking about.
There is not a dock. It's awfully
me-
close to the
me
property.
just-
So this is the property line here, and you can see it's within about a couple feet here of the property line. And then here is the extended property line. And so Mr. Hunt's dock here is across the extended property line, but it doesn't enter the water
So I
from the
just need to read
current
this.
property.
Let me just read this to you. I noticed that there was no mention in the report of the fact that there's already a dock built in the riparian area of the Tomlin property.
Can you tell me what you're reading from, please? That would be helpful.
I'm reading from a letter from, excuse me, from Rosemary.
I think she's referring to the fact that the terminus of the Lot 9 dock crosses the extended property line. So, and I don't want to step on Ms. Keynes, this might be better answered by her, but the dock code prescribes the instant parcel and when the dock's leaving the instant parcel and where it ends up. Your dock should end up within the extended property lines of the parcel, which is what's shown, sorry. See how these two, so this would be the dock that's being requested, leaving the Tomlins parcel. This is the dock that Ms. Wolf is referring to, leaving the southern parcel. Her suggestion, I think, is that this dock owner should give this property owner rights to use his dock.
Well, it doesn't say that here, though.
I think she specifically says they should share the dock. She sent 2 letters,
I'm here if you want to ask me.
so.
It's, you know what it is? We have information from staff, we have information from you, we have information from other owners, and it kind of, I need to still set up clarity
Sure.
before we even could get into, it makes it a little bit of a mishmash, so,
And if I can interject there, here is a certified survey by a surveyor of the situation. There is 1 dock from Lot 8 that crosses the extended property line of Lot 9. There is a proposed dock, which is before you tonight, on Lot 8.
if you could go back to the green area that was that one, right there. So is that dock that's below the green, right there, correct?
That is the Lot 10 dock.
Okay, is that on the Tomlinson's property line?
This, sorry, that's the Lot 9 dock.
That's.
No,
what
sorry,
Lot
that
9
is the Lot 10 dock, and you can see the angle here, the angle here. There's just not a very clean situation out
They're
there.
proposing
If
to
I can
put it
jump
in
in real quick.
between the Hunt and the northern wolf
Correct.
dock. So
Well,
it's
I
in
know that.
between those two, not the one
I
that you're
know that.
looking at.
I know
Ca-
that.
If I can just interject to provide maybe a little bit of clarity, you can't the aerial is very confusing and misleading. That's why this survey is really important. There is not an existing dock on the Tomlins property or for the Tomlins property. Aerials sometimes and property line layers are not exactly lined up, so they'll look skewed, which is what you're seeing here. But for clarification, there is no dock on the Tomlins property. That's what they're requesting, to build one there now.
And if I may, Mike and Chair, my question earlier, and it's even more blatant now, is there seems to be these docks that we're talking about are extremely close together. But the distance between the Wolf dock, the northern dock, and then the very next dock is way, way far away. Now, is that just because of this aerial view? I mean, that's the greatest distance on this entire picture is between the Wolf dock and this little tiny one way, way north of it. Why is there nothing built in between if all of the docks are built out except for this
That's a
one?
different subdivision.
It's a different subdivision, Mr. Hrabowski.
So that is completely separate.
Correct.
And also,
And Mrs.
that
Wolf's
property-
property is also in a different subdivision.
Yeah, and if you see, it's kind of hard to see, but the property line for Mrs. Wolf's property is that entire distance. So she has a dock, it's just towards the south. Typically, the code requires a dock to be constructed within the center 1/3. So you take the waterfront frontage, divide it by 3, that gives
Right.
you that footprint. That isn't always the case, where you can get sign off from neighbors at the time it's being permitted. That can allow it to be adjusted. I don't know the permitting history of that dock, so I don't know the distances or whatnot, but that's why sometimes you'll see it not necessarily in the exact center.
Okay, so that brings me to another question for our attorney, Ms. Myers. Can we even weigh any of the other properties in this decision today? What they were granted?
What they were granted, you
Because usually we're told we can't consider other properties and what they were
don't
granted.
need to look at what other properties maybe were granted as a variance or not granted a variance to make your decision today. You can look at how the properties have been treated, how the properties are built, so so this property isn't treated differently. Does that make sense?
And I believe we were still having, Mr. Eisner having
Please.
some questions of
Thank you.
this presenter?
Thank you, Chair.
Certainly.
My second question, correct me if I'm wrong, did you say you were now only looking to build a dock and not a boat lift? So this has changed?
Correct.
Okay. That's very different. Do we have to amend this?
No.
The
They're going for
verbal-
lesser, not greater.
The verbal amendment's sufficient to go
And
forward.
can we get clarification then on that verbal amendment, which I believe you had stated there were amendments that were increasing the distance between the Hunt dock and the Wolf property line? step in anytime I'm saying something incorrect here, as well as the removal of the lift.
Correct. So the plan that you have before you, which was an effort by my client to address staff's concerns about the boat lift.
The large, that was just passed out to us?
Yes.
So we're all on the same
Yes.
literal page?
And it's also the last slide in your PowerPoint. And it's what you have in front of you with the 11 by 17. It shows a north setback of 4 foot to the extended property line on the north, and a minimum of 6 foot to the southern property line on the south, as opposed to 1 and 1, where 9 feet would be required on both.
So my next question would be, do you know the depths of the water? Because that hasn't been made aware of for any of us at what point. And why I asked that question, so you understand where I'm going with this, we're kind of limited to the size of the property according to how far out the dock can be. And it's fine and dandy that the other docks are out, whatever, 45 feet, 50 feet. But if your area is only 22 or, as you say, 30 some odd feet, if the water is deep enough to have a boat in and you have only a 15-foot dock, that would be sufficient. That's what you get with that size property.
And I believe Mr. Price is here to speak to that.
Okay.
Any other questions, Mr. Iser?
I probably do, but it's okay if we...
We'll keep rolling down the line and circle back again.
Go on, Mr. Burris.
Mr. Boris?
Not this time.
Not at this time? Mr. Rabowski?
Not at this time.
Okay, so I believe you had some more information to present for this
The
application?
applicant, yes.
Good evening. Yes, so I just wanted to
State your
clear.
name and address
Oh.
before you get started, please.
My name's Anthony Price, address 3051 Autumn Drive, Palm Harbor, Florida, 34683. I'm with Price Marine Construction.
Thank you.
And so basically, when we started out on this road, we had a pretty elaborate dock design in the beginning with boat lifts, pretty good sized dock. And then once we started digging to start doing drawings, we realized that space that we had was very minor. Not a lot of room for what we wanted to do. We thought we could still do it with the help of the neighbors' signatures by signing off on being out of the center 1/3, but we ran into difficulties with the north neighbor. So we had signatures from the association on our original dock design and from the Hunts. So we thought we were just working with the north neighbor, trying to make a design that would make everyone happy, because Mr. Tomlin wanted to work with the neighbors as much as he could. So once we started going through this design, it was just really difficult to find a way to make a dock, boat lift, roof, everything fit into the area we had. So we started scaling back things, pull the roof off, try to design the dock to where we could still put it on the property, not impede on Mr. Hunt's navigation, not deal with Mrs. Wolf's navigation, and still give him a workable boat lift that he could come into and not disrupt anybody. Once we continued through, we found that the dock was going to have to be really close to Mr. Hunt's. Once we laid out strings on the property, started putting lines down it, we realized that Mr. Hunt's dock was really far over the property line. We referred back to the permit that was brought up from 2014. The roof, boat lift, the new 20-foot extension to the dock. It actually showed 10-foot setbacks from Mr. Hunt's property line, which we know is not there. This permit was provided by Water and Navigation. I only have theirs. I didn't pull the Tarpon Springs permit, but I'm sure there's one for Tarpon. So Caitlin, back on 12/7/20, approved this drawing, and, you know, they were allowed to construct the extension to the dock and build their roof, and with the idea that it was 10 foot off the property line. So when we first started going through this, we thought, oh, we've got 10 foot from the property line from his dock. We're going to be really far away. Well, once everything started going through, we realized that his dock crossed over. So Mr. Tomlin and I decided to remove the boat lift so that we could give some space to Mr. Hunt so that his dock wasn't going to be right on his walkout. Since it is just a dock, the water depth at the end of the dock's 3 feet deep. The water's edge goes from 1 to 2 to 3. So within 10 to 20 feet, it gains a foot. So he's got 3 feet of water at the end of the dock. You know, I think he's being reasonable with where we're putting the dock, how small it is. It's not going to impede on any visual sights. Mr. Hunt and Mr. Tomlin's houses are pretty high on grade. So if you were to look out, you're pretty much going to see Mr. Hunt's roof, boat lift, dock, and Mr. Tomlin's is going to be in front of it, closer to the shoreline, where the big trees are. I mean, pretty much the only way you'll see his dock is if you walk down the walkway of Mr. Hunt's walkway. Miss Wolf's property is full of foliage, so it would be pretty hard for her to see it as well unless she's out towards her dock area. So we were hoping that with the concessions that we were making, we would try to help everybody and try to make everyone happy. But then we received the letter that the Hunts didn't want to sign off on the property, so now we're where we're at now with trying to get a variance for this.
Okay. So thank you. And just to clarify, there's no vertical structures happening on this now amended application.
Correct.
It's straight dock.
Correct. So if the water height is 3 foot high, we'll probably be a couple feet higher than that at the top of dock so that our framing is out of the water, so that it doesn't, the water doesn't rot out any framing materials. So, but there will be railings going down. There needs to be railings because the walkway going from top of property, because the houses are so high, it is a pretty tall walkway from the beginning of the property. By the time it gets to water's edge, I would imagine top of dock from ground level would be 3 to 4 feet. But once it's out in the water, it's not going to be any taller. Railing height won't be any higher than what Mr. Hunt's is, to try and keep with the uniformity of the docks that are already in place.
And is the height of the proposed dock in line roughly with the height of Mr. Hunt's?
Yes.
And you're talking, it was, I just want to make sure I'm not speaking out of turn here, it was the 6 foot setback between the south edge of the proposed dock to Mr. Hunt's,
Correct.
and then 4 feet from the north edge of the proposed dock to the extended property line.
Correct.
And that, because those, I just want to make sure that was clarified for the benefit of all here, because that was that last minute adjustment, correct?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So they'll be sitting on their dock, and their view, because if they look straight out from their property, they will be looking right at Mr. Hunt's dock structure. So their view is more northeast between Miss Wolf's and theirs. That is their view. So,
As noted, I believe in one of the earlier PowerPoint slides, probably about number 12-ish. Okay. So I don't want to monopolize this. If we have any questions of the board, if we want to maybe start at the other end, Mr. Boris, any questions?
No, I
on-
understand what's
On this
going
new
I'm good.
information?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Abowski?
The only question, so you did say with your amended proposal that you do have adequate depth of water to launch.
we actually have adequate depth of water for a boat lift if we were allowed to have it, but figure that's a
Right.
point now.
But if you were held to the letter of the law, it would not be adequate
It
depth.
would be.
I'm
because
talking
the
about
li-
if they had forced you to put it in to the letter of the law.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if we could have,
It would be dry land.
correct, oh, up
Yeah.
north, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you need a certain amount of space for the cradle, the bunks, and for the boat to float off of it.
Right. So
I think
what you,
one of our proposals was even an elevator to try and keep everything
Yeah.
tight, but,
just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
correct.
Mr. Eisner?
Thank you. So number 3 here, it says, according to the applicant, the additional length is necessary due to the water depth. I still haven't gotten an answer on what that water depth is, 10 feet out and, say,
Yeah, that's what I was just asking.
Yeah, it's
3
tough to read.
I don't hear you.
This distance from here to here is 1. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, 0, 1, 2, 3. So,
That's why
if
I
I
asked
can, how do I get that thing up there? The one that you had zoomed in?
to launch.
This section.
Do we lose power?
Oh, maybe it was there. Is this one?
Yeah, is that the pointer? Okay, so let me go to.
Like, I could see that. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So right there is land. So we got 0 feet there. Then we went out 10, we got about a foot. 20, about a foot and a half. 2 feet, 3 feet right in here.
3 feet.
But we measured, so we walked along here closer to his dock because there was more like ground area here. So we didn't walk exactly right here, but we were like within 6 feet of it. But that's the depths we were getting through here.
Okay, and thank you for clarifying the line that is the,
Water, yeah,
the
line.
water line.
And
Right.
This is the edge of water. There's a really big tree right here that we're avoiding by coming in. It actually works out nice to come right down the center 1/3 with the walkway because there is a big, nice tree right here.
So then that, from the water's edge to the end of the dock, can you please clarify again
from
what the
this
total
point-
length is?
To here?
No, sir, from there to there, yes, sir.
Okay, so 55? 55 feet from edge of water, yes, 55 feet.
Right, so that has not changed from the original application, it's still the 55 feet, and the criteria, the code is 1/2 of the length of the property, which would be at about 11 feet, am I correct? Which is hence the variance for, don't make me do math right now,
I know. It's
43?
tough.
Thank you.
Because here's the edge of property, here's the edge of property, so, I mean, it's one of those things with water
It depends on where
navigation.
you're talking with that tree
Does water
situation.
navigation draw a straight line here? Do they take it from here? Do they say your dock can be at this point, then it has to follow this funky shape? It's all, Julie from Water Nav, if she was in a good mood, she'd say one thing. But yeah, that's what we're asking for, is 55 feet, which helps. I mean, for a boat, we needed it to put a lift in with putting it all on the property lines. It was as far out as we could go anyways, because to try and fit it within the property. Now it becomes having Mr. Hunt have a comfortable space between him so that when he walks down his dock, he's not like
Right.
laying on somebody on the dock, so.
This is not an ideal situation.
It's not.
So,
So
and I
we're
believe,
trying to give Mr. Hunt enough room to walk by. She's got, her dock is up in this area, so we got plenty of room to where we're not making someone sitting on her dock feel claustrophobic, but maybe if someone was to walk by, we're trying to.
and Mr. Boris, I believe you had a
I have a
point to.
question. If the dock for Lot 9 was within the southwesterly boundary line, on this, on that one that you have here, yes, and it wasn't encroaching on Lot number 9, as the extension is presented. Would that have given you any more room?
To go out further?
Yes.
Not without signatures because of the width of his property.
Okay. If that was the case, would you have been able to put a lift besides the dock, in front of the dock?
In front of the dock?
Yeah.
Yes, but we would still need signatures because of the width of the property. Or variance.
I got you. Thank you.
Mr. Eisner? Ms. Rich? Okay, and I do have a question. There was a notation here that these docks, probably slide 7, 8, 9 in that area, that the original subdivision plans included the 6 docks for these parcels. And the proposed dock was the only one that was not constructed as originally planned and permitted. Yes, that diagram. So, you know, it says that it was planned and permitted, so then you make reference later saying that the other docks had their own separate permitting.
So the additional permit was for the additional length of dock and roof structure. That was another
Okay.
permit.
I think,
Okay. Please,
to clarify, sorry,
No.
please do.
this is the site plan that was approved that shows each of them. But the county, through its water navigation system, requires you to permit 1 dock per 1 parcel.
Correct.
So there are 5 permits that were issued for 5 of the 6 docks. So this lot was the only one where a permit was not submitted. So it was, the site plan approved the dock configuration here, but it did not receive a water and nav permit.
Do we know why?
I'm only guessing that Miss Wolf, from the little bit we've talked, she's very nice, very sweet. I think there was some issues with maybe the developer at the time, and maybe the developer couldn't put the dock in without her signature, maybe even then. I'm only speculating, I don't know.
Well, I asked the question because we have a letter here that says from the Hunts that it was never intended to be a dock there, that it was not. So, I mean, that's why I'm asking the question.
We can go to the public if.
Yeah, and I think
No.
that might be,
Sure, I have no problem asking that question. I was just asking you if you have an idea of why that was like that.
I don't.
Okay.
That's just a guess of mine. These were, when were these pulled?
is it 12?
2016.
16. So if we could, because I believe we do have people present here who can help address some of these questions and concerns in addition to what they presented in writing. So if you want to speak on this application and have not yet been sworn in, if you can please stand and raise your right hand and the attorney can swear you in.
Swear to tell the truth and the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
All right, thank you.
All right.
So if either of you, I don't know, who wants to go first? Ladies first. Okay, thank you so much. If you could please state your name and address for the record.
Rosemary Wolf, 427 South Fish Drive, Tarpon Springs, Florida.
Thank you, Ms. Wolf. So we do have the emails that you have submitted, but we wanted to give you an opportunity to address any concerns you may have with this application, and also for the board to ask questions if you may.
Okay. I first have to confess that public speaking is not my forte, and I am shaking, and I'll do the best I can to be coherent. It sounded like there was a little bit of wordplay going on, because we're talking about a dock being in front of a 22-foot wide piece of property, and then I hear them saying the dock isn't in front of the 22-foot property when the survey shows it, and I did take a picture of the surveyor's stake and strings and sent that along with my email to show that even before it went in the water, that the property line went under the walkway. I'm not sure why that's critical, but I believe that at least 12 foot of the dock that's there is in the riparian area of the Tomlin property. I don't think that a 22-foot parcel should expect to build a dock, especially when there is one there already. Now, I do believe that their rights may have been impinged upon by their neighbor's construction of the dock in front of their property.
Understand?
I think that somebody said that I said they should share the dock. I don't think I made a suggestion as to what they should do, but I think two neighbors should be able to work together when one accidentally put his dock in the wrong place, and that I shouldn't have to pay the price by having the crowding and everything next to my property, because someday I may want to do something with my property, and it will affect possibly what I can do. My property is really everything I have. I'm not a wealthy person. I happened to get the house when it was in very, very, very bad condition. And I just hate to see my future taken away from me by giving somebody rights that I don't believe should be extended. There will be, to approach this dock, a walkway built very close to my property line that will not be very attractive. I do go out on my dock sometimes and enjoy the waterfront. So I don't know why other people are judging whether it would bother me or not. Again, I question whether the party that built their dock behind the Tomlins property isn't the one that should be in some way sacrificing. Whether they allow another dock to be built, deed this one over to the Tomlins. More of it, I believe, is behind the Tomlins property than is behind the Hunt's property. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Great. You're doing good. Ms. Rich?
Yes, thank you so much for coming tonight and sharing with us, and nerves aside, you're doing great.
Thank you.
Just a question, you know, the plans before us tonight were a little different than what was originally posted for public, you know, to comment on. And there's some, in the new plans, there's some additional room put between the dock and your property. Is that something that you're comfortable with, the new plans? Have you seen as presented tonight?
I'm not comfortable with 4 feet. It's not really that much more than 1 foot. Okay. I thought that the rules were made for a reason, and it was what was considered good practice, I would assume, by the original lawmakers. So I'm not sure, again, why a variance should be provided to somebody with a 22-foot piece of property that already has a dock
Okay.
in that riparian area.
Okay, well, thank you
I-
so much.
I have talked to a lawyer, and he feels that that would be something for me to pursue.
I believe Mr. Boris may have a question?
Yes, you mentioned that they will obstruct your view. You won't be able to see from that side of your property? Is that what you were thinking about?
No, what I said was that there was having a boardwalk built a couple feet off my property line isn't ideal, isn't attractive.
If they put a fence, would that make a difference for you?
I don't see a
Won't
fence.
be able to see the deck anymore. Think about it.
You're asking me questions I haven't considered, so I'm sorry, I'm
No,
not
because you
able to
mentioned
answer right now.
obstructing your view, that's why I picked it up and I'm asking you,
No.
if they put a fence there.
I'm sorry, we miscommunicated because I don't think I said obstructing my view. I said it will be in my view, but
So a deck is something that you don't like to see there.
I'd like to address you. Wouldn't it make more sense to be able to build a nice-sized dock where it belongs? Right now, my waterfront, I didn't get out there to take a picture today because I wanted someone else with me because I'm afraid of alligators. But it is washing out from the boat traffic that's now there underneath the edge of my property, so that I'm afraid to walk on the last couple feet of land because I'm not sure how far in it goes. When the water was down a while back, it looked like it was pretty far under there. So anything that encourages more boats to be pulling in and out of there will only make that situation worse.
Well,
That would
one of the
But will
things,
that be a problem that they create, the Tomlins create?
Let me remind, one second, let me remind the board that this is public comment, and you do not have to answer questions posed to the board from those making public comment.
Thank you.
You can choose to, but you do not have to.
Can I ask?
Mr. Eisner.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, and I appreciate your nervousness. You're doing well.
Thank you.
Your letter that you wrote, your email, it says that there is a dock at Tomlinson's. Is there a dock there?
Yes, that's what my first expressed is I hear people saying there is not a dock there. If you look at the survey that they showed you, it shows that the walkway from the Hunts to the Hunts dock crosses the Tomlin property line a few feet before the water's edge, and then the dock is more behind the Tomlin property than behind their property.
So are you possibly describing the Hunt's property as the Tomlinson's property? Or
No.
let me rephrase that. Are you saying that the Hunt's dock is on the Tomlinson's property line?
Yes.
Okay.
And it crosses the extended property line into the water so that at least 12 feet of it is in the Tomlinson's riparian area.
Right. See, the issue that I'm looking at is it seems like the north is leaning on the south side, the south is leaning on the north side, and what's happening is the Tomlinsons are being choked off in the only way I could describe it, to not have use of their waterfront property.
Sir, if I built half of my house on your property because I wanted more room between my neighbor or whatever, would that mean that I should be able to just leave it there and not have to help this neighbor get the dock that you're saying he deserves?
I didn't say that.
That's
I'm
my
just-
point, is that he already has a dock behind his property, and his, what he should be able to do is to work with that neighbor, because the alternative, I would think, would be to make him remove that dock from his property.
So is your impression that when you say work with his neighbor, you're referring?
Mr. Hunt.
Okay, so you're talking to the neighbor of the north, not you.
I don't have a dock built on his property.
Okay. I'm looking at a diagram, and, you know, earlier you said something about you must follow the rules. But yet, we're looking at, the rules state that a dock has to be in the center third of the property.
I'm sorry, that dock was built in 1956 before I ever
I know,
had
I
the
understand
property.
that, but that's what's making the issue right now, or at least making the issue for us, it's making it a hard decision for us, because everybody should have an equal share, whether they, you know, to be able to use their boat. That's the only question I'm saying. So when I look at yours, your property and your dock, I don't think it could be any further north than it is. It's on the northern, the most northern part of your property.
No, that's a different.
The opposite, Mike.
The opposite, I'm sorry. Okay.
You're good.
So that's what I'm not following, your thinking.
I'm not sure what you're looking at, because my dock, when I look out from the center of my house, I see my dock. Where I enter the dock is about 10 foot in from the property line, maybe even more, but it's certainly not right up against the property line. But the dock does not go straight out into the water. It sort of goes across in front of my own property.
See, what happens is a lot of these lines, there's no organization to these property lines. They're about as crooked as could be. And, you know, things are built at different times. I mean, I'm listening to your neighbor explain that they're willing to remove part of the dock, but you're kind of saying that they shouldn't have any dock to use, or they should use their neighbor's dock? Is that what
I'm saying that they should negotiate with the neighbor to build a dock like they want in between the two houses, take over the neighbor's dock, let him have that dock. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer.
Right.
But I don't know that he should be able to impinge upon my future use of my property by putting something right up against my property.
Something that, if I may ask, this might be a question for Ms. Keene. The walkway of the proposed dock, you know, coming from the home down to the property, so that walkway itself, can we get clarification either from Ms. Keene or maybe the applicant as to where that sits on that 22-foot of property? How far is that from the northern edge, which touches up to Mrs. Wolf's property?
So where the walkway comes from the water's edge, I don't have the exact measurement from here, but I know that it is at least 5 feet.
And that's that walkway, like from the water's edge to the house.
Actually, do you have that measurement? The edge of the walkway to the north property line? 11 feet. So right, yeah, so the, okay. So the edge of the walkway, so the narrow part leading out to the platform, is 15 feet from that edge to the north property line. That falls within the center 1/3 of the property. Where there's an issue and why the variance is requested is once you get out to the platform, the size of the platform sits outside of the center 1/3. So so the walkway itself is within, you know,
Is
the
within
permissible
the,
area.
is within the permittable
Location,
codes.
yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Earlier, somebody said something about they changed the distance to my property line from
Yes,
1 foot to 4 feet.
they put more distance between you and their dock.
But they mentioned the 1 foot to 4 foot, because I didn't
Yes,
get
and
an
that's out in
opportunity
the
to see.
water. So nothing has changed from, correct me if I'm wrong, y'all, nothing has changed from the boardwalk walkway that is being built on land, correct? Which is not part of this application
Correct.
because that's already following the rules and laws.
Okay, I'm not sure what they were saying about changing from 1 foot to 4 foot then, but
Yeah, it's where it is at the end of the dock in the water. You know how like the dock is narrower where you walk, and then when you get to the end of the dock, it gets a little fatter, almost like a little platform. That platform where it gets wider, that's where it used to be 1 foot from your property line, the property line that's in the water, but now they've made adjustments to make it 4 feet.
I'll just highlight this corner here. With the original proposal, it was this corner to the extended property line was 1 foot. With the revision, it's now 4 feet from this corner to the extended property line. This piece here, the walkway, it has not changed. But this is the distance that changed, if that helps
Okay.
provide a little clarity.
So it gives you some more padding, spacing between what's being proposed and your property.
do you think that looks attractive?
Well, the criteria that we have to judge and base our decisions on, they do not take into consideration attractiveness.
But do they take into consideration the presence of more than one dock in front of 22 feet of land?
And that is what we are addressing, is the application that what we're looking at is what can the length of the dock be and where can it be sat within that 22 feet?
I did go and try to find any law that would allow more than one dock in front of one piece of property, and I didn't see that anywhere.
And I believe, and that's where I'll defer to our counsel on this, the Hunt dock, that dock that's to the south, that is, as permitted and by law, that is indeed in front of the Hunt property and not in front of the applicant's property.
But it
Even
is
though
in
it
front
doesn't
of-
look like it, as it is when you look at the survey, that is the Hunt's property. Even though it's the eyes can be deceiving.
My eyes are deceiving me because it's telling me that that whole covered dock is in the 22-foot, in the same area they want to build another dock in. I don't know what's so deceiving about that.
This is public comment. I'm not going to give legal advice to someone giving public comment. This is not the issue you guys are asked to address tonight, so I would recommend that we move forward and address the variance that's before us, not this
Other
nice lady's
properties.
complaint about another dock that maybe have been built in the wrong spot. That's not what we're here about.
Thank you.
So I do have legal recourse to object to a second dock being put on the same property.
And we understand and respect that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Would anyone like?
It's public
It's-
comment.
It's,
He is not a
it's your
witness.
prerogative. You're not. It is up to you to step forward if you wish. We can't require you to.
And I think Ms. Cole still had some testimony to present, so if the public comment kind of went out of order to try to get some questions answered, but if public comment's done, we'll go back to Ms. Cole and let them complete, if
That would
that's
be wonderful.
acceptable.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Tomlin, the applicant, had a few words, and then after he speaks, and I'm sure you'll have some questions for him, then I'll do my conclusion and rebuttal, if that's acceptable.
Madam Chair, how are you?
Can you, please, for the record, state your name and address, sir?
Yep, Steve Tomlin, 1460 Keystone Ridge Circle, Tarpon Springs.
Thank you.
So, a lot of information tonight, and this has become a part-time job. I've learned a lot. It's definitely interesting. I work for a corrections company. I have built prisons with less hoops to go through. It's a very interesting process, but thank you for your time and consideration. We purchased this property with the understanding or the hope that we had, lake access. During our first submission, it was pointed out to us that you may have access, but there are guidelines that provide what that access looks like. The version you have in front of you now is the 5th survey that I have commissioned. We have had boat lifts on the north, on the south, on the east. We now have it without boat lifts. We've tried everything possible to make this amenable to the neighbors. Ms. Wolf, to her credit, has been communicative, open. When Mr. Price was over doing one of the layouts, we stood out there and talked for a while. It's been a process where I was always raised to be neighborly. And I think I've given a lot back on this. Not that I was entitled to any of the things that I gave back, but they were requests. So, we've given up the boat lift. I'm now looking at a seating platform, which if I conformed with the width of the property, it would be like theater seating. We'd be sitting behind each other to look out at the lake. They're 9 foot or whatever it would be. You wouldn't fit 2 Adirondacks because you wouldn't be able to walk around them. So we're trying to figure that out. To Mr. Hunt's defense, and I don't know this for sure, he can certainly correct me if I'm wrong. When he purchased the property, part of that walkway was there. Whatever he added with that additional piece that was signed off by the previous owners to my property was built by the previous owner to his property, is my understanding. That's from the 2 young ladies that we purchased from. Again, I don't have that in writing in front of me, but that's what I understand. Does he cross over into the riparian rights? Yes, every drawing says so, which is why I have dropped back, which is why I have now eliminated. You bought this house to get a boat and to be on the water. I'm now relegated to kayaks and paddle boards in a lake that, as Ms. Wolf pointed out, is gator friendly. So that's, I'm now bait. But that's what we're trying to do. We're really trying to make sure that we take everybody's into consideration, that we are, we've cleared some land. I've done everything that I could to comply. I brought in an eco-friendly arborist. I worked with the city's arborist to remove trees. We didn't use fossil fuels. We used, peanut oils and biodegradable stuff to cut down trees. We've been very careful about everything. We've tried to follow this to the letter of the law. But then to find out today at 3 o'clock in the afternoon that there was a letter from I guess Mr. Hunt's wife, girlfriend, I don't know who Miss Malatin is, that I was going to obstruct their view to the lake when his entire dock is built in my riparian rights was almost laughable. So I've got to say that out loud because it's gnawed at me since I read it.
And we understand, and that's where, like as the attorney said, we're here to look at your application, and I do appreciate and respect your attention to detail of trying to, be neighborly and utilize your things, and appreciate the application that you presented where you are explaining the modifications you've made today.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we're looking at a walkway that will be 15 feet from Ms. Wolf's property. To understand, when you see that, and it's not in that, it's in the previous drawing, there's a block wall with a 10-foot drop that goes down and leads out to the water. So that is where the walkway would start. Throughout that walkway, there is a tree line and a shed that Ms. Wolf has that will shield her from seeing that walkway out. We have stepped back off of Mr. Hunt's walkway, even where it crosses over into my riparian rights, to make sure that he has sufficient room. We had initially put a boat lift next to his. We moved it. We put it on the other side with Miss Wolf's, knew that we were too close to her line, tried putting it out on the point, and really today, I called the surveyor. We had a conversation at 6:30 this morning, and I said to me, if you ever just redraw this, take out all boat lifts, give me somewhere to sit, give me somewhere to launch a kayak, let me have access to the water. Let's just get peace in the valley and try and get something done. And that was the goal for tonight. I mean, that's really what I've tried to do. You know, I
did offer you the use of my dock.
We
have had some nice conversations.
We really have. So that's,
glad.
and Ms. Wolf's dock is in states of disrepair that I'm surprised she goes out on it. But
Right, and we're, here for your dock tonight.
exactly. I'm not concerned with hers. So, I think the length from shore, if you look, the oddly shaped triangle, that point, there are two large trees on that point. If I only came out the 11 feet that I'm allowed, I would be butting up against the trees. I wouldn't be center 1/3 anyway, because I'd be cheating because of the odd-shaped triangle there. And we'd only be at a foot water depth. So, the reason we came out to where we did was to try and have water depth. The original length of that was the hopes for a boat dock. We've now said, okay, let's just get something approved so that we can have access to this somewhere going forward. And that's really the goal. I mean, I'm not holding again. Like I said, what happened with Mr. Hunt's dock prior to him and with his extension and where that crosses over, I'm not taking that on here.
And no pun intended, that ship has sailed?
It's exactly right. It's there, and a shared dock. I mean, at some point, I assume we'll have to draw something up because, and I don't know this for a fact. I haven't asked the attorney yet, but if his dock and his boat are on my riparian rights, do I have any responsibility should something happen?
And like you said, that's an issue for another
Somewhere
day.
else,
That's
right.
an issue for another day and another group. I
So,
appreciate that.
look, I've tried to be neighborly, I've tried to be eco-friendly, and I've tried to be compliant with the county. I've amended this and moved this to do whatever I could to make this, something where when my kids come home from college, they can go out and, we can paddle around. I was looking forward to going out and waterboarding with them. That's not going to happen on Lake Tarpon. If I'm going to do that, it's going to have to be with the boat somewhere else. So.
Well, I appreciate you coming and presenting this. Or is there any questions from the board for our applicant? Seeing none. Does anyone have any other further questions for our staff or for the applicant's representatives?
I just want to thank you for your presentation. It was just honest and sincere, and we really appreciate your hard work in trying to get this thing solved. So, thank you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys listening. I mean, it's been, like I said, it's been a part-time job, but.
Well, it's not easy because there were preliminary docks built. Whenever you have an inside corner like this where you have lines overlapping, we've had these before where, situation where you just sometimes have to bend the rule in order to accommodate. It's not a thing of beauty, or we can't have we don't vote on blocking views or anything like that. Is it feasible? Is it not feasible to give you use of your water rights?
Right.
So.
No, I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. So if we don't see any other questions, thoughts, concerns, any other information to be presented?
Simply going to conclude if now's the time.
Certainly.
Thank you. Well, I tried to be very linear in my PowerPoint, so there weren't so many questions, but I fear that I've failed.
No.
So I think, interestingly enough, your questions and even Mrs. Wolf's testimony go straight to the core of the criteria in your code. Is this a unique property? Is it different than other properties in the zoning district? Would it deny the reasonable use of the property as compared to other properties in the zoning district if it weren't granted? Those are the criteria in the code, and in each of the testimony before you, with the exception of the original staff report, speaks to why those criteria are met through this application. This is a very narrow lot that was platted and approved. It was contemplated in 2014 to include a dock, and for whatever reason, we don't know, there was never one applied for and approved by the Water and Ave Authority. This owner has sought a dock. He's reduced the scope of his request significantly to be the minimum request necessary for the reasonable use of his access to the water and how he can navigate. The existence of the Hunt dock, while not before you today, certainly complicates the matter and creates another reason why the setbacks, it kind of is what it is. It creates, you can see why this is such a unique situation with a very narrow lot, with a dock, and Ms. Wolf's dock, we just checked the permit, not as built, but the permit from 1999, when the dock was rebuilt, is 21 feet from her property line, from the south property line, the edge of the dock. So, and that was the boardwalk, not the boat lift there. So you have two docks that are very close by that create a complicated situation. And we know that with the testimony that you've heard tonight and the evidence that was in the application, and we feel we do meet the criteria in the code for this variance, and we would respectfully request your approval of a variance of both the length and the side setbacks as presented in the revised drawing that you have before you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ridge.
Question for staff, Ally. Based on the revision of the request, because your staff report was from the original information given, do you have any addendums to your staff report you'd like to share with us?
So, no, I don't have any official addendums to the staff report. As you know, when we prepare these, we prepare them based off the materials that are available at that time. There is opportunity, like the applicant did tonight, to revise that and provide that evidence at the hearing. What I will say is, part of our findings were basically stating that, yes, reasonable use of a waterfront property is to take advantage of the waterfront. However, staff did believe that it could be reduced in size in order to be maybe just an observation deck, remove a boat lift. So those were suggestions from staff at the time, but I won't necessarily amend it to have a recommendation just because we haven't done our full analysis.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a difference of findings of fact when you remove the boat lift, no?
But I haven't done the full report and analysis from a staff perspective. But no, I won't rattle off new findings for the hearing. So, like I said, we prepare our staff report based off the materials available at the time of the application. But once the applicant receives the recommendation, they have the opportunity to make any sort of amendments within the confines of the variance request to work with the board. So that's what they chose to do.
Any other thoughts, questions before we ask for a motion? Motion?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Go ahead.
Mr. Boris, second? Do we want discussion?
I'm happy to open this up. I just feel that it's everybody's right to have access As far as to have a lookout point is nice, but, you know, you have to have access for, to be fair to everybody else that has a boat access. I don't know how these other docks got there. We have a lot of people that build things and then add things on afterwards that we, you know, that we don't know, and we don't know whether they took out a permit for it or not. But that shouldn't stop this applicant from having use of his right. So that's what I'd like to say.
I'd like to add a comment.
Mr. Burris?
The existence of the Board of Adjustments is exactly for situations like this. And what Mr. Eisner said, things are built in the past, they have been missed for whatever reason, computer was down, nobody picked it up, whatever the case was. So we are at this point now. There is a dock there on the Tomlin's property. It doesn't belong there. Well, what do we do? Do we have the Hunts and Mr. Tomlin and Mrs. Tomlin fighting over it in court for 10 years? That's not a solution. That's not a good citizen solution. So I think that although Ms. Wolf has her objections as far as there's a lot, it's a dock there on Lot 9, it doesn't belong to Mr. Tomlin. It belongs to Mr. Hunt. So I think our decision, the motion to approve, and my seconding it, I hope that the board extends that.
Thank you. Ms. Rich? Mr. Urbowski?
It's just a simple fact that if they were held to the letter of the law, they would build a dock on essentially dry land. It would be unusable. So you have to give them some leeway. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense.
Ms. Rich?
No comment.
I do see a lot of points and agree with a lot of points that my fellow board members, Mr. Boris, you know, as you said, this is why our board exists, is there are peculiarities with the way things are platted and are laid out, and circumstances that happen with adjoining properties, such as, you know, how Mr. Hunt's dock became, you know, came to be, that are beyond the control of the applicant and the purview of this board. And I respect and appreciate the applicant's efforts and willingness to make this as least obtrusive as possible, while still maintaining, exercising his rights to access the property on the water. So with that being said, we have a motion and a second.
Can I get clarity on the motion, please?
Yes, yes, because, thank you. I had even written that down. Mr. Urbowski, you made the original motion. Would that be the motion as amended, which is to grant the variance with a 55-foot length?
That is correct.
And a south setback of 6 feet and a north setback of 4 feet? Am I correct on that?
Yes, as amended.
Ally?
Thank you.
Thank you. So, motion and second as amended?
Yes.
Okay, roll call, may we?
Ms. Wright?
Rich?
Rich?
Rich. Yes.
Mr. Boris?
Yes.
Mr. Hrabowski?
Yes.
Mr. Eisner?
Yes.
Ms. Turner?
Yes. So thank y'all, everyone, for your details and your patience and understanding, and happy boating, kayaking,
Out
sunset
for
gazing.
alligators.
Yes, please all.
I don't know if you need them, but there you go. You're welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, and we do have the next item on the agenda, application number 22-01. That has been noted that it is deferred to the March 30th Board of Adjustments meeting.
Can I make a point on that? That's
Yes,
the-
you may, Mr. Boris.
The 5th Wednesday of the month, aren't we supposed to meet? The 4th Wednesday of the month?
Ally?
Let me verify the date.
Was there perhaps a scheduling conflict with another meeting on?
I know that a couple months, there might be scheduling conflicts, so it might shift from the third or fourth Wednesday or whatnot, but let me just double check the
Be
date.
good for the record to know.
Yes.
I may have also put it on my calendar incorrectly, so let's just take a step back.
Double check.
Okay, yes, the March meeting day is March 30th.
It is, okay.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you for that clarification and bringing that up, Mr. Boris. Okay, so the next item, we have approval of minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes, our October 20th ones, which we had deferred because I remember there was a correction Ms. Rich wisely brought up regarding Mr. Urbowski's presence or not. And the December 15th and the January 26th, if we wanted to have an approval, a motion to approve or deny as a group, or if you want to separate any out.
1 second.
Mr. Eisner.
I wanted to just remind everybody that that March 30th meeting would be changed also to 6:30, correct?
Yes.
Oh, you stole my staff comment.
I'm so sorry.
I'll mark that off the list. But yes, you're correct, 6:30.
I just wanted to make sure you knew I was paying attention.
Fourth
Good job.
Wednesday, different time, the world is amok. Good point.
I
So,
just was putting it in my calendar, and it said 7 o'clock, and I said, I know better.
Jackie, I'll make a motion to approve the 3 sets of minutes as before us as a group.
okay, so we have a motion for all 3. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Boris,
Yes.
Ms. Rish,
Rich.
Rich.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Hrabowski,
Yes.
Mr. Eisner,
Yes.
Ms. Turner.
Yes. Okay, so we're moving on to staff comments, which we've completely stolen your thunder on that one.
Stole my thunder. No. So I just wanted to thank everyone that was able to join us at our comprehensive plan workshop that we had. Oh, I don't know, it feels like an eternity ago now, but I just wanted to thank you guys for participating, and we'll keep you up to date on any future participation that we'll have for that project. And I know at the beginning of the meeting, we introduced you to Caroline Lanford, but I wanted to publicly introduce her to the board. She's our new-ish planner. She joined us back in October. She hasn't been before you, so I thought I would give her a nice shout out, and she's filling in for Kim tonight, and great job.
Yes, thank you so much, and I find it pretty funny that I'm having trouble with Rich rather than Hrabowski.
I was thinking the same thing.
Historically German, so historically you're correct, but currently just rich like money bags.
You got Eisner down, Pat, so I was okay with that.
All right, so do we have any comments from our board members tonight?
Well, I do. I have actually a couple of questions. So we just had an election, and we're having an election. So it's like we're rotating the furniture on the Titanic over here. So assuming our 2 new president, our chair and vice chair, get elected to the commission, they will not be seated at the 30th, right? So do we have a new election then, or if we have a quorum, we just do it, we post it to the April meeting?
So, correct me if I'm wrong. So the clerk's office is the one that's in charge of going through the appointments and the boards and everything like that. But we do have Ms. Simon as an alternate. That would give us 4 members. So we could theoretically conduct a meeting, am I correct? We would have a quorum.
Quorum at 3, right?
Yes, so if the 3 of you were present, and as well as Ms. Simon, we could conduct a hearing. But yes, we would have to get new members.
Right, and would we then do the election once we filled the board, or would we do the election for president, vice president?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Or chair and vice chair,
we
rather.
would probably have to do the election at the beginning of the meeting, because we wouldn't have anyone to chair it. I don't know how that would work.
That's right.
So
Sure, I guess we
noted.
would.
Yeah, so we would do, at our next hearing, if the membership is
be weird.
different, we would have to re-elect officers.
Okay.
So you're not out of the water.
Right.
Chris,
You are
could just,
experienced,
you could
Mr.
be the
Hrabowski.
on-deck hitter, you know?
Yeah.
All right. So here's hoping you guys don't get elected.
All right. Well, Caroline, welcome. Delayed welcome, and thank you all so much for all of the hard work that y'all are doing on these community forums and the First Fridays. I know you're sacrificing a lot of your nights and weekend times to engage the community, and please know it does not go unnoticed. It's greatly appreciated. And who would have thought that the P&Z department would be so creative and energetic? I mean, y'all are out there just really having fun with folks, and people are enjoying it. So thank you so much. And I'm glad Kim has the night off. Good for her.
Oh, I did have another
Anyone else?
question.
What's
also.
up?
So Ellie, you had a lot of talk about riparian rights, and this might also get you, Ms. Meyer. If somebody owns property and then they're granted the right to build a dock on dry land, right, especially in a county lake, don't they have, does the county have any obligation to make that navigable, to dredge it? So that they
So
can
it's-
actually put a boat in? Because
So
it was
you're-
originally said each property could have that right.
So as it was noted by the applicant, they had the site plan approval that assumed a dock would be on each of the properties that had water frontage. But you have to, just like if you plat lots and you build your house, you still have to get a separate permit for the individual house, regardless if, we knew there was gonna be a house there. So you'd have to get permits individually for that. So it would be reviewed. All dock permits go to City of Tarpon Springs for review, and then they're also to Pinellas County, because Pinellas County has jurisdiction over the waterway. They specifically do look at waterway navigation. A lot of times we'll get revisions. Say we approve a permit, it meets our code, but sometimes it'll get bumped back by the county saying, nope, it needs to be in a different spot because you can't navigate the water. So I would assume that if they had proposed a boat or a dock that was 11 feet at length and it wasn't deep enough and they had a boat lift, the county would probably be like, this doesn't make sense. I don't think that means that they have to go dredge. I think that they would be like, you need to get a variance.
I agree. I don't think the county has an obligation to come in and dredge it to make it navigable. I think it is, oh, well.
Who owns
Go to
Lake
the city or
Tarpon?
go to whoever may give you a variance to make it longer. That's why there are such things as variances.
Right.
Because, any government entity, they don't voluntarily just say, let me fix it.
Right.
Because that makes it, opens a can of worms. So I don't
Yeah,
think
and
they
you're
would
welcome
just-
for me not bringing that up while anybody was here
Right,
to hear.
no, but it does,
I
I mean,
I
it's
didn't want to make it worse.
interesting. And who then really, since Lake Tarpon goes beyond Tarpon Springs, right? It's a county lake.
Well, it would be county. It would be the county government.
Is it technically a county lake, though? Do they see it as a county lake? I don't know.
I
the
believe
water-
so. I think that they have jurisdiction over the
Yeah,
waterways.
they have county jurisdiction over it. And there are certain waterways that are just channels or canals that the county actually has to dredge to allow people to go through because they have riparian rights. That's why I was asking the question, because
Even
it
if
seems
it's in
bizarre
city
that you would say
limits.
everyone in this area is going to get a boat dock on this body of water, and yet if you follow the letter of the law, it doesn't reach the water because it's only 11 or 12 foot, see? That's why I just wanted to clarify. But I didn't do it in front of the crowd because I knew that would just throw us here till
Well, you could have
midnight.
denied the variance and had him sue the county and just see what happened. That's just an idea.
You just have to ride an alligator out to your boat, that's all.
There's always options.
There's options,
There's
right.
options to explore. We're all about options.
Might not get there, but it's worth a shot.
It's an option. Okay. All right, well, if no more board comments, I believe, are we good? All right, so let's adjourn the meeting at 8:38.
Mr.
Not your
Eisner.
quickest that you've ever done, but
Mr. Eisner. Mr. Eisner.
but you did great.
Good night, everyone.
Turn my page
Tarpon.
tonight.
Was that state wildlife? Or is that county?
I think the alligators have a mind of their own.